Okay, everybody, what we're going to be talking about today is going to be the year 1968, which is going to be one of the biggest pivotal years in the Vietnam conflict and also a very important year within the United States because there is a lot of protests going on in 1968. There's a new presidential election in 1968. So, what we're going to do to introduce the year to you is that I am going to begin by playing you a video on the year 1968, and it's going to review with you some of the major events that take place in this year, and those will be the events that you will eventually be working on today. So I'm going to switch it over to the video, and then I will explain what we're going to do once the video is over.
January 30th, 1968, marked the beginning of a new lunar year in Vietnam. It was also the cue for some 50,000 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong troops to launch a massive attack against South Vietnam. The cities of Hue and Saigon were the chief targets. One of the 101st Airborne Division's crack units, the Delta Raiders, was heavily involved in the fighting.
But at that time, the mission was to get to Hue, get the Marines out of Hue, because they had been trapped there since the Tet Offensive began on the 31st of January. So with us pushing to get to Hue as quickly as we could, we had no choice except to continue the attack, and that was the order I was given, continue the attack. During this battle, we had two Medal of Honor winners, Joe Hooper, who seemed to be everywhere on that day. Of course, I only observed Joe for a very short period of time when he was back at my location. But the reports from the other men is that Joe was simply everywhere up on the front. And that Joe was running from bunker to bunker, throwing hand grenades, killing North Vietnamese, generally inspiring all the men around him. And Joe Hooper to the Delta Raiders became just one tremendous giant. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on that day, along with one of his fire team leaders, Dale Urban, was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, which is the nation's second highest award.
U.S. forces suffered serious losses, and thousands of South Vietnamese civilians were massacred during the Tet Offensive. Communist forces were beaten back by the end of February, except for the U.S. Marine base at Khe Sanh, which remained under siege until April. But the enemy onslaught was a clear sign to America that the war was not winding down, as the Johnson administration had claimed. News coverage of the Tet Offensive left LBJ politically vulnerable. Anti-war candidates from his own party lined up to take him on as the Democratic National Convention approached. Early frontrunners included Senator Eugene McCarthy, who unexpectedly won the New Hampshire primary early in 1968. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, brother of the slain president, also had strong support from the anti-war movement. 2 months after the Tet Offensive, President Johnson made a startling announcement.
I shall not stoop, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
9 weeks after LBJ withdrew from the presidential race, Bobby Kennedy was dead, cut down by an assassin's bullet just after winning the California primary. That summer, the bloody montage continued. In Chicago, several thousand of the most militant demonstrators converged to disrupt the Democratic Convention. More than 100,000 had been expected, but many were stopped when city officials, under orders from Mayor Richard J. Daley, refused to issue permits.
There was an effort made on the part of the Chicago Seed, which was the underground newspaper at that time, to encourage people to stay away from Chicago if they were thinking about coming, because it was felt that there was going to be a lot of violence.
Word on the street turned out to be accurate. Police forces outnumbered the demonstrators 2 to 1. Networks covering the convention captured the war in the streets as police attacked some 7,000 protesters and, in their own words, busted heads. One campaign worker for presidential candidate George McGovern witnessed the scene from her hotel room. She sent a frantic teletype to the convention hall.
The front of the Hilton is bloody, People are being brought in here to the first aid station. They have gashes, and God, it can't be described. They're being pounded on. The newsmen are getting it much worse than the demonstrators because they don't want them to publish or show the sadistic scene. Our staff is hysterical. It is too much. God, please help us. Please hurry.
The melee had one beneficiary, Republican presidential candidate Richard M. Nixon, who was elected in 1968 by a margin of 500,000 votes.
Let us take as our goal, where peace is unknown, make it welcome. Where peace is fragile, make it strong. Where peace is temporary, make it permanent. After a period of confrontation, we are entering an era of negotiation. Let all nations know that during this administration, our lines of communication will be open.
By the end of the decade, the anti-war movement was reaching new heights. Moratoriums against the war closed schools and businesses nationwide. The presidents of 79 colleges and universities urged President Nixon to speed up troop withdrawals from Vietnam. Even some returning veterans who had fought in the war publicly denounced it.
A lot of shit. Walt Kurtz, Tennessee, 4 Bronze Stars. Right on. I pray that time will forgive me and my brothers what we did. And only those lumping pigs behind those closed doors have to suffer, and not the young kids and the unborn kids.
So when you get the emergence of the Vietnam veterans actually coming out against the war, this is an amazing rush of adrenaline for young people who were in the civilian part of the movement. To have this kind of legitimate voice join them in their call to bring the war to an end just moved people tremendously. And what was important about them was this was the first time in U.S. history that veterans coming back from the war actually opposed it while it was still going on.
News of atrocities committed by U.S. soldiers in the village of My Lai reached the States on the last day of November. Reports of unarmed civilians being gunned down, followed by an army cover-up, eroded much of the remaining political support for the war.
Okay, now I'm going to explain to you what you're going to do now with the year 1968. There are 2 files that you will need to open off of the Wikispace. The first one is this Word document called Historical Perspective 1968, and the other one is a PowerPoint just simply called 1968. Now, with the PowerPoint, what you will do is it goes in order of some of the significant events that are taking place within this year. So you're going to review the information from the PowerPoint, and then with the Word document, there are 5 different topics that are addressed, and they're all numbered. So for each topic, there's 2 things that you must do. Number 1 is you are going to create a summary in sentences underneath each topic. So I will then look at Tet Offensive, read about it in the PowerPoint, and then I will create my own summary explaining what happens with it. Summary should be, multiple sentences. It shouldn't be a 1-sentence summary. That won't be enough to answer. Now, part 2 is that with each topic there are questions, or at least one question that goes with the topic. So after you complete the summary, you then will answer the question, and that also needs to be in sentence form. So there are 5 topics, and then there are a total of 6 questions. There is a spot for you to put your name at the top, and when we are done with this, we're going to be printing it out, and you also should save it into your documents right now so that you have it as you work through it. So I am here with you in the library, so if you have any questions on it, feel free to ask me, but open these 2 documents and then you can go ahead and get started.